Gentle children, sweet hearts of divine love, I come on this, my Ascension Day, to be with you in the intimacy of that inner joy of presence that provides surcease from all struggle, strain, and stress. And in this hour, I desire to share with you that which may raise you in light, that which may bless you with a greater sense of peace and holiness, that which the angels of the sacred fire have wrapped in ribbons of light and quintessences of divine joy for each one of you, and a very beautiful representation of God's grace, God's givingness to your soul, God's eternal essence vouchsafed to you within your spirit, one with the eternal. Long ago, in the late 15th century, a disciple carved in marble a sculpture known as the Pietà. And Michelangelo captured, through the talent invested in him by the Divine One, a most touching and poignant moment, that when I received the body of my Son from the cross after his crucifixion, in that moment of the greatest pain that a mother may know, there was also suffused around me and around us a certain grace of holiness, a certain presence of peace that restored in the connection between mother and son eternality between our beating hearts. For I knew in my soul that he would be resurrected, and even then I held inviolate within my heart the transcendent goal of his victory, his oneness with the Divine One, and the conclusion of his mission in that era, for the raising of thousands and millions of souls unto their own presence of divine light. I would have David read unto you a little about this sculpture from the resource Wikipedia, so that you may more mindfully appreciate that which Michelangelo created in his communion with Jesus and me. For I did appear to him a number of times with beloved Jesus, and we placed within his inner vision that which he most artistically created, which now all mankind has access to at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. From Wikipedia, the Pietà, 1498 to 1499. is a work of Renaissance sculpture by Michelangelo Buonarroti, housed in St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican City. It is the first of a number of works of the same theme by the artist. The statue was commissioned for the French Cardinal Jean de Bellemare, who was a representative in Rome. The sculpture in Carrara marble was made for the Cardinal's funeral monument, but was moved to its current location, the first chapel on the right, as one enters the basilica, in the 18th century. It is the only piece Michelangelo ever signed. This famous work of art depicts the body of Jesus on the lap of his mother Mary after the crucifixion. The theme is of northern origin, popular by that time in France, but not yet in Italy. Michelangelo's interpretation of the Pietà is unprecedented in Italian sculpture. It is an important work as it balances the Renaissance ideals of classical beauty with naturalism. The structure is pyramidal, and the vortex coincides with Mary's head. The statue widens progressively down the drapery of Mary's dress to the base, the Rock of Golgotha. The figures are quite out of proportion, owing to the difficulty of depicting a fully grown man cradled full length in a woman's lap. Much of Mary's body is concealed by her monumental drapery, and the relationship of the figures appears quite natural. Michelangelo's interpretation of the Pietà was far different from those previously created by other artists, as he sculpted a young and beautiful Mary rather than an older woman around 50 years of age. The marks of the crucifixion are limited to very small nail marks and an indication of the wound in Jesus' side. Christ's face does not reveal signs of the Passion. Michelangelo did not want his version of the Pietà to represent death, but rather to show the religious vision of abandonment and a serene face of the Son. Thus the representation of the communion between man and God by the sanctification through Christ. The Madonna is represented as being very young for the mother of a 33-year-old son, which is not uncommon in depictions of her at the time of the Passion of Christ. Various explanations have been suggested for this. One is that her youth symbolizes her incorruptible purity, as Michelangelo himself said to his biographer and fellow sculptor Ascanio Condivi. Do you not know that chaste women stay fresh much more than those who are not chaste? How much more in the case of the Virgin, who had never experienced the least lascivious desire that might change her body. Another explanation suggests that Michelangelo's treatment of the subject was influenced by his passion for Dante's Divine Comedy. So well acquainted was he with the work that when he went to Bologna, he paid for hospitality by reciting verses from it. In Paradiso, Cantica 33 of the poem, Saint Bernard, in a prayer for the Virgin Mary, says, "Virgin Mother, daughter of your Son." This is said because, since Christ is one of the three figures of Trinity, Mary would be his daughter, but it is also she who bore him. Sculpting of the work took less than 2 years. Following completion, the Pietà's first home was the chapel of Santa Petronilla, a Roman mausoleum near the south transept of St. Peter's, which the cardinal chose as his funerary chapel. The chapel was later demolished by Bramante during his rebuilding of the basilica. According to Giorgio Vasari, shortly after the installation of his Pietà, Michelangelo overheard, or asked visitors about the sculptor. Someone remarked that it was the work of another sculptor, Cristoforo Solari, whereupon Michelangelo signed the sculpture. Michelangelo carved Michelangelus Buonarroti's Laurentinus Faciabat. On the sash running across Mary's chest, the signature echoes one used by the ancient Greek artists Apelles and Polykleitos. It was the only work he ever signed. Vasari also reports the anecdote that Michelangelo later regretted his outburst of pride and swore never to sign another work of his hands. In 1964, the Pietà was lent by the Vatican to the 1964-65 New York World's Fair to be installed in the Vatican Pavilion. Francis Cardinal Spellman, who had requested the statue from Pope John XXIII, appointed Edward M. Kinney, Director of Purchasing and Shipping of Catholic Relief Services, USCC, to head up the Vatican transport teams. People stood in line for hours to catch a glimpse from a conveyor belt moving past the sculpture. It was returned to the Vatican after the fair. In subsequent years, the Pietà sustained much damage. 4 fingers on Mary's left hand, broken during a move, were restored in 1736 by Giuseppe Lirioni, and scholars are divided as to whether the restorer took liberties to make the gesture more rhetorical. The most substantial damage occurred on May 21, 1972, Pentecost Sunday, when a mentally disturbed geologist named Laszlo Toth walked into the chapel and attacked the sculpture with a geologist's hammer while shouting, "I am Jesus Christ, I have risen from the dead." With 15 blows, he removed Mary's arm at the elbow, knocked off a chunk of her nose, and chipped one of her eyelids. Onlookers took many of the pieces of marble that flew off. Later, some pieces were returned, but many were not, including Mary's nose, which had to be reconstructed from a block cut out of her back. After the attack, the work was painstakingly restored and returned to its place in St. Peter's, just to the right of the entrance, between the holy door and the altar of St. Sebastian, and is now protected by a bulletproof acrylic glass panel. Dearest ones, I feel all that you feel. The angels of the sacred fire know that which emanates from your heart and proceeds through your being as you deeply are affected by what transpires around you in your world during this time. We know that which is transpiring throughout the world in multi-dimensions of being. And when you pray the rosary and give your devotions to God, there is a grace that is bestowed unto you, like the grace that filtered through the atmosphere and surrounded me in that hour, represented by this sculpture, whereby you may be sustained in this presence of peace. You may be surrounded by an ovoid of spiritual light and fire. You may be buoyed up no matter what is going on in the outer world. For blessed ones, it is always God's pleasure to give you the kingdom, to bestow upon you this holiness and sense of peace, when your purpose is oneness with God, when you have surrendered attachments to form and to what this world has become, and the lower representation outpictured by those unwed to Source. And when you can maintain that sense of presence in your life, all is sustained in the grace of the Holy Spirit, in the living reality of God's eternal being all around you. I use this image of this sculpture in this hour, where many are suffering, many Christians throughout the world have been affected by the throes of what they see as the greatest darkness that could come in an era, as their fellow Christians have been slaughtered, beheaded, and herded up by demonic forces and sent by those evil ones into the etheric octaves as their lives have been taken from them. Dearest ones, because you know of the law of karma, of cause and effect, even though there is always the sense of horror when experiences like this occur, be at peace knowing that all has transpired according to cosmic law. But there is a reason why each and every one must go through these horrors in order to balance the ledgers of heaven in their own personal book of life. Yet, through prayer and intercession by that prayer, grace may always manifest. The evildoers may be restored to a life of godliness, and the karmic hammer, as some have seen it seemingly manifest, may be softened, and peace truly may be restored within the lives of all. Every grace that is bestowed unto you and those within this world through the sacrificial giving of prayers, of meditations, and of that which you do to allow heaven to manifest here, provides an impetus for the new age to occur. Every time love flows through your heart and mindfulness proceeds from your inner being, there is a type of intercession and mediation that occurs, which truly is miraculous, dearest ones, for we are there within this manifestation. We are always attempting to restore everyone to their original divine blueprint of pure beingness. Therefore, pray unceasingly, give of your hearts in intimate moments of total charity to the one God, and feel, as you do this, the uplift, the beneficence, the grace that you may access because it is our divine pleasure to provide it in obedience to the Holy One, the Lord God. Now one final word, blessed ones. The Ascension itself is the greatest grace, is the greatest gift that one may receive and know. When you can feel any ascended master's light energy field suffused within and around your own auric circle, there can be for you those elements of the Ascension itself pressed deep within your being to assist you on your path of your victorious ascent. Therefore, every time you commune with, call to, pray to an ascended being, the victorious presence of the Ascension that is still vibrating within the greater auric field of that divine being manifests in essence around and within you. And that reality may be sustained as long as you are able to hold it by your conscious awareness. In fact, you may retain the ascension spiral by the intercession of ascended beings around and within you always, and never experience duality, banality, or the vicissitudes of this world. This is what many of the saints knew through their intimate conversation with and communion with the Sacred Heart of Jesus and my own Immaculate Heart. They rose in consciousness beyond the dialectic of darkness of this world. They sustained the grace of ascended Master saintly consciousness by their divine attitude, by the flowering of their divinity every moment, through prayer and through this sense of holiness. This is what I knew and have always known since I was given birth to as the Virgin Mary by my mother, Anna. And from this realm of purity, from the station of life and holiness, I continue to emanate the immaculate concept to and within each of you as a restorative grace, as a continuous blessing, so that you may maintain that awareness of God's presence in your midst. And again, feel the restorative and miraculous, living light presence of grace and beingness. I am your Mary, loving you to the fruition of your true self, and this and in all future ages to come, within the eternal now. See the fruit of your being fully outpictured in your divine reality now. And it shall be, and it is so, by the holy grace of God. I thank you. Mary will remain around us throughout this day if we remain mindful of her presence in our midst. You may desire to have an image of her, a holy card or a card of some kind on your desk, in your kitchen, on your refrigerator, on your mirror, and just through a moment of contact with her eyes and seeing her beautiful image, be reminded of her message and of God's grace flowing through her this day and every day. Thank you, beloved Helen and Estelle Marie. Much love to all in Detroit and those on this broadcast and those who will hear the rebroadcast of this message. God bless you and have a great day. Bye-bye.